Hello and welcome to sim.bc, where it right now is about 9:38 in the morning, mates. Yes, in the morning, not in the evening, mates. We're not that late, because if we were boom with this internet, we wouldn't be able to get anything out. I know it's sad, but it's true. But fortunately enough for me, mates, and for you as well, in a certain extent, we only have to work with this for about another 5 days or so, because then I'm back in my apartment. Woo! On Saturday it's coming. It's gonna be only a few days left, and then we're in the apartment, and then everything needs to be put in the right place, so I will not have that much time for videos. But anyway, it's gonna be all fine, man. It's gonna be all good. But something else that's completely irrelevant for this discussion we're gonna have here today, but something that we've mentioned previously that I just happened to stumble upon by coincidence, yeah, by rare accident, not by rare accidents. I am subscribed to the channel, so it wasn't by accident, but they covered kind of the same thing that we've done. The game theory, yeah, indeed, because they were covering if loot boxes are gambling, and they've made 2 different videos on the subject quite recently, which was, you know, in relation to when I did mine. So they're probably going to utilize the same sort of, not the same sort of information. Of course, they have much better perspectives, not much better perspectives, but they're utilizing the perspectives a bit more, giving a bit more in depth, have a bit more budget, a bit more experience in the area, right? But since they came out around the same time, then maybe we have the same kind of context going into the gambling perspective when it comes to loot boxes. So I highly recommend that you go and watch those videos and then come back to me here, mates, and we're gonna keep on going with the chapter review, because that is why you're here now, isn't it? Because today it's time for chapter numero 4. Yes, indeed, it's time for chapter 4. So let me just move myself around here, because that is what I do best. I know we're professional here at sim.bc, only the best, am I right? So what is chapter 4 going to be about? Yet again, we're going to work with Tailor brands. So I'm going to just mention this again, that you need to have 1,000 subs in order to actually get some sort of financial support for market stuff. So this is on YouTube, so this is not sponsored, absolutely not. So yeah, what is chapter 4 all about? Well, it's about getting the message out there, and I know I'm trying to get the message out there, both about another channel and that this isn't sponsored, mate. So we're already halfway into it, but getting the message out there, and this is marketing basics. And I know we've covered marketing before, but just bear with me, because this is going to be through the eyes, right, through the goggles of Tailor brands. So, what's next after designing logo and the brand identity? Well, you're going to find, attract, and retain customers, because now you're going to use that logo, right? You're going to use the logo you put together with your team, you put it together yourself, you hired an external service, you've used an existing service like Tailor Brands, for instance, on the interwebs, right? Try to use it to make a logo based on your brand identity, based on your core values, and now you have it in your hand, right? And now you're just like, I'm gonna market this to everybody. But why am I going to market this to everybody? Well, because you want to do exactly those 3 things that I said. You want to find, attract, and retain customers. So now you want to put out your logo in order to find customers. You want the customers to find you, to find your logo. And this is quite interesting as well, something that I took up in the text, and I've sneak peeked in chapter 5, so it might be in chapter 5 actually that take it up. But a good logo should not only retain and attract and find customers, it should also attract job applicants. So for instance, if you're working at, let's say, IKEA, and you want some good people to work at IKEA, and you have this logo, you have your brand identity, you have your core values. Now you want to, you know, have people to actually work in your business. You want people to have them on the factory floor, so to say. You want them in your stores, you want them in your supply chain, you want them in your management, you want them at the top, you want them at the bottom. But how do you find the right kind of people? Well, you do that by having a good logo as well, because then you will attract people who are customers, who later maybe will apply for an internship, apply for a work position at your company. So keep in mind, right, that the logo and the brand identity and the core values that you expose is not only to attract customers, but in order to attract job applicants as well. Now, imagine getting an email without a company logo on it. What's your first thought there? And I loved how they took this up in the text as well, because I was like, that's suspicious. And that's exactly what they were going for. Because if you get an email, right, on you in your inbox, and it says like, this is from IKEA, but it doesn't have the logo on it, it doesn't have any form of reference to IKEA at all, then you think, fake. This is fake. This is not the IKEA that I know. I didn't have to put together the email by myself. They didn't just send me letters and said there is a message somewhere in there. No, of course not. That's a kind of a joke on the assembly process of IKEA. I like it, but whatever. But you kind of get suspicious, right, when you get an email with no logo on it, because you feel definitely like, this might not be the company at all. This might be a scam. So the logo is kind of important because it not only attracts customers and job applicants, it also retains those through the idea of, well, we're actually a real business here. We're not only people who are going to scam you in money, we're actually a business that you can identify with, and now we're going to use that logo that you identified with in order to retain you by saying that we're still the same company, we're still the same place. Use external marketing, because this is something that is quite important, because so many companies really try to have an internal database. They have to try to have an intranet where they can communicate, but that's all fine and dandy, right? But that's still inside, the company and the corporation. Yet touching on chapter 5 here, so we're not going to go that into intranet, but it's quite important to utilize other stuff as well. It's things outside of your company, right? It's things that actually will be shown to other people, to customers, and yet again potential job applicants, such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, social media overall actually. And what have we been discussing when we're discussing social media? We're discussing consistency, because the brand needs to both fit the different social media places, the different platforms that you're using, as well as conveying the same message as it should be, or as it should do, as well as fit where it should be at your retail store or at your website. So it needs to convey the same message everywhere. It needs to be consistent with how it's presented. It needs to be consistent with the core values of your company. And when you're reaching out to Twitter, when you're reaching out to Instagram or Facebook or whatever you choose, Snapchat maybe, you need to keep the same vibe that your company is supposed to represent. But you need to use external marketing in those ways, because you don't need to. You could probably develop one by yourself, but it's much easier to just piggyback on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, whatever you have it, right? Whatever, you name it. But it's so much easier to just utilize that, because there are already people in there that you can associate with, people who are associated with that brand and can associate to your brand through the platform already. And that is quite important, because you need to be associated with brands that have the same values as you. And now many people have reached out to Twitter, many companies have reached out to Twitter, so it's not that weird to reach out to Twitter as a new company. You can actually go there and you can start a bit of a conversation, a bit of a dialogue with another company. Maybe you make a tweet, right? And we're just going to use Twitter as an example here, but maybe you use a tweet and you say that I am using this toilet roll that is from Lamb or something, or it is from Chair, let's say, just a made up company name. And then this Chair company that makes toilet papers are saying, well, they're getting in on the action and so on and so forth. Maybe you're saying that you're enjoying your smoothie if you're a smoothie company, and you're saying you're enjoying it with a nice happy meal, so to say, from McDonald's, tagging McDonald's. Maybe McDonald's, the fast food giant, will go in there and like and share it, right? And try to actually help you in the marketing, since you're showing off a positive attitude towards their company, which is also in favor helping them, because you are a third-party alternative to the food giant McDonald's that are supporting that they're actually good. So they will probably, help you with your marketing in order to, one hand claps the other, so to say, or helps the other, favor the other, because you will favor each other in your marketing approach, because you're supporting each other's brands. So yet again, associating brands is important, because maybe when you're looking at a luxury lifestyle, you're thinking, oh, Happy Socks is a couple of good socks, and then you're thinking suits through Happy Socks, or you're thinking suits are pretty good, but what socks are they using? And you see Happy Socks then, for instance, and you're saying, that's pretty good. And that in turn makes you think of no other socks, because you're thinking about the suit, and through the suit you should have Happy Socks. For instance, just an example made. So association with brands, quite important indeed. And you can also argue that this is some sort of external marketing channel, the association of how people associate with it. But you should try and engineer it so that people are associating different brands with yours, as long as they're having the same kind of, what you would say, same kind of brand identity, the same kind of core values. Moving in then, be where your target audience are. And this is quite important, but because let's say that well, you're favoring the senior citizens, then maybe Instagram, Snapchat and Twitter isn't the best, no matter how good it is. You can still be there, of course, but maybe that's not the focus that you should have. Maybe you should be a bit more face-to-face. Maybe you should be knocking on doors, go to them. Maybe you should try and call them instead, because that's what they think is fashionable, not being on the internet, because being on the internet is only stressful, right? So many gadgets and stuff that moves around, and they're like, oh my days, this wasn't what it was like when I was young. So maybe you want to try and call them instead. So it's all about relating the marketing to fit the target audience that you have. And now something that is quite important before we wrap up the ending. It's rather useless to have a lot of channels if you're not going to, update them regularly. It's better if you just focus on 1 or 2 or 3 channels. Let's say you're focusing on Facebook, you're focusing on Twitter. Let's say you stop there and you say, well, I'm going to update these regularly with content that actually makes sense. Because what tends to happen when you're racking up and collecting all of these platforms as trading cards is that, well, you're updating one frequently and quite frankly a bit tenacious, right? You're just shoving in all of the content that you have there, and then spills out in a way, spares and more spares and spares to the other channels, and maybe one channel is dead. You shouldn't collect that, because then people will watch that, they will see your brand name on a dead channel on a platform that is quite vibrant. Let's say that you have Instagram, but you're completely neglecting it. You only have created a company there, not a company, but you only created an account there to show off your company, to show off your organization, but you're not actually using it. But you are telling people that you have an Instagram account, so they will go there, view that there is no content, and then it doesn't matter if you're on Twitter all the time 24/7, because your Instagram account is dead. So that is kind of a potential problem that you can run into when it comes to, just acquiring lots and lots and lots of different channels, different platforms. You shouldn't do it just for the sake of doing it, but the more that you can handle, the more that you can manage, the merrier. It is better with more, because you get more exposure, you get more association, you get more people get more understanding of you and your business, and that is in the end good, as I said, as long as you can manage it. So utilizing external sources. Just ending and wrapping it up, because there were some things that I thought was quite extraordinary, quite interesting actually, and that was so much is on social media. So much on the focus in this chapter was about social media when it came to utilizing external sources. Lots of it was focusing, on phones. Lots of it was focusing on tablets. Lots of it was focusing on the internet, what was already pre-existing that people are using. And of course, that is why they're going to use, what they're going to use, what people are going to view. But if you just take it back like 20 years ago, or articles that I read in university about the 1980s, the 1990s, up to the 2000s actually. I think that's where the switch came with the big internet boom and the .NET bubble and all of that. But people are moving more and more to social media and less to face-to-face, because just a quite interesting example then, or quite interesting is, that's relative, but a thing that I found was quite interesting. I was talking to some friends of mine, and they were saying that they switched banks only on the basis on that the bank didn't supply them with its face-to-face connection. Now these are older fellas, right? About 60 to 70 years old. Me mates, right? Maybe that's not the right term, but yeah. I have some friends who actually changed bank just because the bank didn't deem it to be important to have this face-to-face connection. So you need to know who are your customers, who is your key customers, and sure, you need to utilize social media, but don't neglect the face-to-face thing. I know that it might cost a lot in relation, the barrier of entry might be higher to the face-to-face, because you need to have an office, you need to be where the people are at, whilst in comparison to social media, you can be all over the world by sitting in your basement, right? But it's quite important to see this trend being evolved and see that there are actually some people who still favor this face-to-face connection over the social media approach. Just keep that in mind when you're moving forward with your business. So that was it for me, mates. That was it for chapter 4. We're gonna come right back at you tomorrow with chapter 5 that I've already sneak peeked a bit on. It's a bit about how intrinsic it works in the business and stuff like that, as far as I understood it from a sneak peek. So have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow with chapter 5.